Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Here.
Councilwoman Peterson? Here. Councilman Tinella?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Here.
Mayor Sakala?
Here. Adequate notice of this meeting was duly provided to the Verona Cedar Grove Times and Star Ledger by email and mail on or before April 8th, 2019, and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building lobby and filed with the municipal clerk in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our public council meeting for June 3rd, 2019. Before we begin, there have been two passings in town very recently, which I would like to recognize and ask for a moment of silence. First is Fire Chief Stan Crowell. He passed away this past weekend. I think 34 years.
34 years of service.
34 years of service to Cedar Grove, and also Joseph Maroney, a longtime resident and a person who we all know very well, was a frequent visitor to both the town council meetings and the Board of Education meetings. I know I personally had many conversations with him about the school when I was president of the Board of Education, and he's a resident who took a lot of interest in Cedar Grove and took a lot of pride in Cedar Grove, and he also passed recently. So I would ask if we can have a moment of silence to recognize both of them.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes.
Joe did serve on the State Board of Education, I think, for a number of years also.
Yes.
Just want to add that.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Yes, Mr. Maroney did serve on the State Board of Education as well. Thank you. On the agenda, item number 2, under approval of minutes, 2A, to consider approval of minutes of the regular public meeting from May 6th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 3A, under public hearing, this is a public hearing to consider the adoption of pending bond ordinance number 19-841, various general improvements. I'll open the meeting now for public hearing on this item. Is any member of the public wishing to be heard? Seeing none, close that portion of the meeting. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of pending bond ordinance 19841 to be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a passed ordinance to take effect as prescribed by law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion from the council? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 3B is a public hearing to consider the adoption of pending bond ordinance number 19-842, the sewer utility, regarding sewer utility improvements. At this time, I will open up the meeting for public comment on this item. Yes, Mr. Burns.
So I have to go, I just want to, what is the improvements on both of these?
Okay.
Can we talk about it further?
We did at the last meeting, but we'll ask Mr. Tucci to review.
Okay,
Okay, because,
I don't know what the.
All right, just to backtrack.
All right,
And then after we're done discussing it, on the back there, Mr. Burns,
Okay.
there's a listing of every project, but I'm going to go over them now.
Thank you.
This way, and then you can go over it afterwards at your own leisure if you want to. Regarding the sewer improvements, the bond ordinance is for $225,000. There's $100,000 allocated for the Greendale Pump Station infiltration improvements, all right? Second is the sewage treatment plant controls down at the plant, the tanks, the controls there, that's for $50,000. And then there's improvements to the sewer treatment plant, the digester, the sand filters, That's another $75 for a total of $225,000. That's just the sewer improvement ordinance. Now, backtracking to the other one, the other bond ordinance is for, the total is $831,000, but we're only borrowing $740,000 because we're using we're using a little over $100,000 from surplus there. And there's a long list of projects here. I'll go over each one of them. We're going to reconstruction of police locker rooms downstairs. Currently, the locker rooms are old, and they serve both male and female. In today's day and age, we're going to redo them, separate so that we have 3 female officers, that they have separate quarters from the male officers. That's what that, and that's in the amount of $77,000. Roadway overlay program, $250,000. We have 5 streets that we're going to re-overlay this year. Turf management down at the Panther Park, that's for weeds and weed control. It's all natural. We don't use chemicals. We use all natural elements. It's not the turf, but the surrounding grass areas, because otherwise the weeds go crazy. Center Fire Company, they need new the bay floor on the inside, $23,000. Acquisition of a new command vehicle. I believe the oldest command vehicle that one of the deputy chiefs has is in 1998. That's $38,000. Safety equipment, $8,000. Their pagers, they change, I think, 6 or 7 per year. The roof on the municipal building. There's 2 buildings here. This front half the shingles are off of it, $17,000. Going to replace that. Tree replanting program throughout the town, $40,000. That's part of our Arbor Day obligation that we talk about at Arbor Day. Acquisition of playground equipment down at Community Park, upper playground. You'll see all the playground equipment is taken away. It's going to be all new, brand new, barrier-free, ADA compliant equipment there, $75,000. That's being offset by a community development block grant of $110,000. So the 110.
Playgrounds,
What's that?
Was that both playgrounds?
No, that's just for the upper playground.
I-
Yeah, playground equipment's very expensive.
Yeah.
Acquisition of safety equipment in for DPW, $10,000. Curb and sidewalk replacement. Every year, we go, we check where trees have lifted sidewalks. We cut the roots down and have the sidewalks replaced, $12,000. Acquisition of live scan fingerprint downstairs. Every so many years, the state requires us to buy a new finger scan to identify people. When they come in, they put no more ink. They use a live scan. That's $28,000. Windows, we replace 10, 12 windows every year in Town Hall. That's $10,000. Updates to police policy and procedures. Biggest thing with police liability is you have proper policies and procedures in place. We have a special company that comes in, and what they do is they go through all your policies and procedures and make sure they're up to date with the Attorney General's guidelines. Very important to protect the township from liability. Our attorney sitting to my right will speak to that. Improvements to Catherine Court needs a couple of more catch basins on the cul-de-sac because we have water ponding, $10,000 there. Mid-block crosswalk near Panther Park, $70,000, waiting for the county to approve it, but we approved the money here. Stevens Avenue stream improvements, this is for a study. We've had residents here complaining about the water that comes off of Park Ridge Estates. It picks up on Stevens Avenue, runs between the backyards on Hilltop Drive. So that's for an engineering firm to go in and do a study, and then we're going to petition the state to see if we can't pipe that area. Hopefully we'll be successful. New ride-on mower for the Parks Department, $27,000. Acquisition of a landscape trailer for our Parks Department to put the equipment in to drive it around town, $10,000. A new shed for DPW with a concrete pad to house some of the equipment there. And then last but not least, Morgan's Farm needs replacement of a new roof. Fortunately, it's an historical building, but unfortunately, historical buildings cost more money than regular roof. We're going to spend $17,000 for a roof here. The historical roof costs $31,000. And this roof's much bigger. But those are the guidelines that you have to follow with the Historic Trust, and that's the extent of what we're going to be doing with the money. I hope that, like I said, if you need any further description, The ordinances are in the back.
I thank you. It wasn't about the money, it was about what it was about. you
Okay.
know. But, you know, obviously, the money's gotta be spent.
Mhm.
And Cedar Grove's got a lot of money.
Mayor,
Councilman?
just two comments. You know, Mr. Tucci, as you're going through that list, I always think back at how you govern and it's, it's a benefit to the town because a lot of these projects here are just general maintenance, keeping upkeep with either buildings and structures, and you've always taken the approach where you got to keep up with it, just like at your house, as opposed to letting it get so dilapidated where we got to spend all that money and replace it all together. And you've tried to get the most out of everything that we have, and I appreciate you doing that. With regard to the road overlay program, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but can you let us know what streets do we have for that, or do we know that yet, or?
We do.
Yeah.
Hillcrest Drive will be one of them.
Yeah.
I believe Sunset is another one. Harper Terrace is going to be,
I was going to ask you about that one tonight. Is that one of
Harper
them?
Terrace is going to be late fall.
Late fall?
That's an NJDOT local aid project.
Okay.
Ozone Avenue will be next year, in the spring next year, because that's still, they're processing that application, because part of this money will offset the grant money, because there's not enough in the grant to cover it all.
Right.
And I forget what the last street was.
Okay. No, and I appreciate that.
But
Okay,
that's
great.
basically a general idea
Yeah.
of the roadways we're going to be doing.
The
this
first one out of all those is going to be Harper, though. That's the top of the list, I guess.
Harper, yeah.
That's been in the
year.
pipeline
And
for a
that's going to
while.
be from Pompton all the way down to the dead end.
Great. Okay, good.
We tried to do around the schools, the access areas,
Right.
to make it easy for people to get in and out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Ducci, one more thing. I'm sorry, but a number of months ago, maybe a number of months ago, you spoke
Mr.
about-
Burns, why don't you come up here so we can get you on mic, okay?
Nobody wants to hear it. Paul Burns, 2 Elm. We were talking about Elm Drive. They were talking about changing the pipeline.
Yes.
What is happening with that? Talking about the water line.
That project will probably be late summer. That project will take
Okay,
place.
so it's still following
Where
through.
we're going to be replacing the water lines on Elm and Church.
Okay, and it's the whole end church,
Yes,
so it goes right out.
yes.
All right. Since I'm up here, I might as well ask, what is the deal with the school, school playground? LRP.
Mr. Burns, I don't have any
something
problem, I don't have any problem fielding that question,
wrong part.
but it's not the
I'm in the wrong
appropriate
part,
time.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
Okay.
We'll see you in a little bit, in
I
about
just wanted to
15
know
minutes.
When you're gonna do it.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question pertaining to the overlay. At the end of, Mr. Tucci, at the end of Harper Terrace, there's a basin at the very end. I think it's Verona's. I don't think it's ours. The two residents that live down there were saying that there was a little bit of a backup over there with debris being over the top of that.
But what's going to happen as part of all these projects, we go in, we inspect the curb, we repair any, and we look at each and every catch basin. Ones that need to be rebuilt, we rebuild all the catch basins before the overlay. So we'll get to it. But I believe those catch basins are in Cedar Grove. 'Cause I think all,
Okay, at the guardrail right there? where
the
it passes?
entirety of Harper Terrace is in Cedar Grove.
Okay.
Because there's even a paper street beyond that's not delineated as a roadway that continues a little bit further.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the public meeting. Does anyone have a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of pending bond ordinance 19-842 to be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a passed ordinance to take effect as prescribed by law.
Second.
Any further discussion from the council? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Coumbouras?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Verga?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 3C, to consider adoption of pending bond ordinance number 19-843 regarding water utility improvements. At this time, I will open up the public hearing to members of the public wishing to be heard on this item. Seeing none, close that portion of the meeting. Is there a motion regarding this item?
I move for the adoption of pending bond ordinance 19-843 to be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a passed ordinance to take effect as prescribed by law.
Is there a second?
Second that, Mayor.
Is there any further discussion from the council? Seeing none, can I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis.
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Yes.
Councilman Tinella.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vorga.
Yes.
Mayor Sakala.
Yes. Item 4, award of bid.
Be it resolved that the award of bid be made to Caputo Brothers Tree Service of Montclair for the loading, transportation, and disposal of leaves in the amount of $7 per cubic yard for a 2-year contract term.
Is there
Motion to approve, Mayor.
a second?
Second?
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis.
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Yes.
Councilman Tinella.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vorga.
Yes.
Mayor Sakala.
Yes, the meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item that is on the agenda. Seeing none, close that portion of the meeting and move on to reports of township officials. And we'll start with, as always, with Mr. Tucci. Good evening, Mr.
Good
Tucci.
evening, Mayor. A few items. First of all, I want to thank everybody who participated in our 29th annual Clean Sweep program on Saturday. The weather gods were with us. We had beautiful weather. We had 13 organizations in town participate, and I think we had a pretty good day. We took a nice photo, which I believe is on our website already. And we want to thank everybody who came out. It's nice to see community spirit, everybody coming out, chipping in, and contributing to the community. Also, in the packet, you'll see there's 2 commendations from the police chief, one for Officer Buccio, who got a call from a town resident. There was a person missing, they didn't know where they were. Officer Buccio, without no facts or anything, was able to go on Facebook and was able to locate this person in New York City and identify them and able to bring them back to their loved ones here in Cedar Grove. So it was just a job well done, above and beyond what, normal police work, but just, and the other one is Officer Wattel and Officer Schneider. They responded to a house where a gentleman was in the process of having a heart attack. They kept him calm. They basically kept him alive with their CPR and everything else that they administered. And he wrote a nice letter explaining how it was a rough ordeal, but those 2 officers' actions helped him through it, and luckily, he's able to go home with his family, and he survived. So those are 2 nice things, nice to hear in our police department. But it's becoming commonplace with our police department. These people do this on a regular basis. It's extraordinary, but they just do it day in and day out, and it's good for our residents, let's put it that way. And the last thing, I have one issue for confidential regarding City of North contract negotiations. And that's all I have this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Report of the township clerk. Good evening, Ms. Stutz.
Good evening, Mayor. 2 things. One, I just wish to bring to your attention that it's time for the annual renewal of our ABC licenses, and that will take place at our next meeting, our staff meeting. They have to be renewed prior to July 1st. And there's a memo in your packet pertaining to that. Anything that gets updated to that memo will be reflected in the ordinance, the resolution that is put on the agenda. And the second item I have is just a reminder that tomorrow is the primary election. Polls are open from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m.
Mr. Mayor. if I
Thank
may.
you.
Ms. Stutz, so I saw the liquor licenses on there, and I saw that 2 were inactive. What does that mean again?
It means that they are not serving alcohol. They're
So
not
the-
operating.
So, and do they pay anything different, or?
No, the annual renewal fees are still the same. In order to remain as a viable license, in order to be transferred to another entity, they have to maintain their license, which means that they have to annually renew it.
And do we know how long, I know that the Shoebox Cafe has been inactive for quite some time. Is there anything?
There's actually 3, I don't mean to
Oh, there's
interrupt,
3
but
that
there's
are-
actually 3 inactive licenses.
Okay.
One is with an open establishment, but they're just
Okay,
not
I know
serving
that.
alcohol.
Okay, so I saw the Shoebox Cafe, the old Rome, and I was wondering, is there anything that we can do with regard to the Shoebox Cafe to have, to somehow stimulate the sale of that, or anything along those lines to get it in an active status? That might be for Mr. Cimarero.
Yeah, it's really a private property issue.
So they can sit on it as long as they want.
There are limits as to how long it could be what's known as a pocket license, it's called, right? When it's inactive.
They have to apply for a special ruling
Okay. And
from ABC.
from ABC. But I don't know what the duration is off the top of my head, do you?
No.
So, I'm sorry, can you explain that?
Well, when it's inactive, they have to make an application to the ABC to continue it as an inactive license. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what the criteria is. It's not terribly heavy. And then they could keep it for a period of time as an inactive license. I don't know, off the top of my head, I certainly could look at it. It's a 5-minute research task.
I think, though, it's an extended period, because the shoebox has been inactive.
For about 10 years,
For
right?
quite some time, yeah.
Much
Maybe
longer
longer
than 10
than that.
years.
Yeah.
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 Is that something that we could potentially look into?
Sure,
I
I can
asked
answer that.
the council if there's any objections.
Not at all, I think it's a good idea.
No objection.
Thank you.
That's all I have now.
Thank you, Mrs. Stutz. Mr. Semeraro?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. We have been actively working on revamping the code in a couple different sections. One with regard to the solicitation ordinance, one with respect to temporary signs, and then one with the rent control board. We anticipate all those revisions being submitted to the administration this week. So I guess our next meeting is going to be a busy one. And I was asked to draft a letter to the Department of Transportation with respect to the mural on, or the request to have a mural on the Route 23 trestle. And we had communicated with the DOT, did a little bit of research on it, and have requested the DOT give us chapter and verse as to an explanation as to why we can't paint it. Particularly in light of the fact that the city of Newark has a mural that spans about a mile on Route 21. It was a friendly letter, obviously, and hopefully we'll get a response of a legal nature so that I could research it a little bit more fully and see if there's any options that we have available to us to request an exception from whatever their criteria is. I preliminarily did some research on it. I couldn't find any statutory or code provisions that were directly on point. So rather than spin our wheels for hours and hours, I'm asking them, since they're the ones that said no, to explain why.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to elaborate on that, just for the public's edification. So what we have been trying to do, the trestle coming into the downtown area as part of the revitalization of downtown Cedar Grove, we wanted to beautify that area. We had been working with the county, and the county had preliminarily approved the beautification of the trestle. The artwork hasn't been determined yet, but they had preliminarily approved that. And then we were advised that we had to get Department of Transportation approval. So Mr. Tucci had been working on that, and we got a verbal no. So we decided to, to continue to fight for Cedar Grove. And that resulted in Mr. Semeraro sending the letter to the Department of Transportation requesting why the answer was no.
Well, I think there was one more step in between.
There might have
here.
been another step.
Our
You go.
assemblyman
Yes,
met with the
Yep.
commissioner on our behalf also, and also got a verbal no, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's correct,
That's a good,
and I did
and that's
detail
also
that in the letter.
included in the letter. Thank you for
But I
pointing
just
that out,
want
Mr.
to
Tucci.
commend Assemblyman DePhillips for that.
Yeah, and
for
I
help,
actually
right?
spoke with him personally on that, and he did speak. And, this is something that I think it's important for our town. When you come into the downtown Cedar Grove, we all know what the trestle looks like now, and we're going to continue to work and to fight for Cedar Grove, and hopefully we'll be able to work together with the DOT and the county to get this resolved, and at least get some type of reasoning why the answer is no. But ultimately, I think if we work together, I personally was just driving down Route 21 on my way to the airport, and when you drive down Route 21 by the Prudential Center, you'll see that there's a 1.5 mile mural on what's very similar to our trestle abutment. And my view is, when you go on their website, that's their gateway to Newark. They want that to be the entrance. They want people to feel excited coming into Newark by seeing that. We want to do the same thing. And a simple no was not something that we wanted to just take and say, okay, we'll accept your no, and that's why we're doing this. So I appreciate you sending that letter. I thought it was a well-written letter. We're looking to cooperate with the DOT. We're looking to try to come to a solution that will help us here, and help all of us. So thank you, Mr. Cimarro, for sending the letter.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cimarero. Reports of the Township Council, Councilman Camboris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sympathies to the family and friends of Fire Chief Stan Cromwell and to Joseph Maroney. I want to thank the residents for their support over the last 4 years and for their kind words, and to Mr. Tom Tucci for his guidance. It's been truly an honor to serve the residents of Cedar Grove, and I thank you all. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Peterson?
Good evening, Mayor. I also want to extend my condolences to Fire Chief Kroll's family. He did so much for this town. It's a huge loss, especially also to his brothers and sisters on the fire department. They're a family. It's a huge loss to everyone. And, my sympathy and prayers go out to them. Also, of course, to Mr. Maroney's family. I do remember him back in the 80s even. My brother had the snack bar down at the pool. My brother and his friend, and Mr. Maroney did not want them to have the snack bar. So we were, kind of laughing today, remembering the heated council meetings back in the day. And my mom remembered him and remembered being here at the council meetings, but we always appreciate people coming and stating what they believe in. And, he was a great man. So also another loss to the community. Switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to congratulate the softball team. Cedar Grove softball team
Great
won
job.
another state championship. And thank the fire department who gave them just a huge entrance into town yesterday. It was, I was crying until last night. It was amazing. I love tradition. That was done 40 years ago in 1979 when they won. They were escorted in by the fire department, and it's just awesome to see that continue. I want to, maybe have a discussion about how we can honor the team.
Absolutely.
I know that they've been winning so much, they come here pretty much every year. So that's a good problem to have. So I just thought maybe we could do something a little different, and we can talk more about this. But being that we're having the infield replaced, I thought maybe we could switch it up a little and maybe do an infield, being we're going to have a new field, do a dedication, and maybe honor the team at the field and possibly dedicate that to them or something along those lines. Just maybe switch it up or have them back here again, whatever the council's pleasure is. But I just thought I'd throw that out there, and just a huge congratulations to a hardworking group of girls.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to do something maybe a little different, since you're right, we do have them in here every year, which is a great thing, but this is special, so yeah, I think, I don't know about everyone else, I'm open to something
Good idea.
a little different.
Yeah, and I think the infield's scheduled to be done soon.
Sometime this month.
Yeah,
The month
so
of June.
maybe after the reorganization meeting, the field will be done, and we could do a nice little ceremony there, dedicating the field, have the girls, we could read a proclamation, and, the only thing is it wouldn't be televised, but, still, it would.
Well, maybe we can I know Andy's downstairs listening, maybe he can get his GoPro here and
You could have them tape it and put it on.
yeah, put it, right, it
You
wouldn't be
could- you could do it
live.
in that fashion. Live, not a possibility, but taping it and putting it on immediately, it'd almost be like live.
I just, the infield's gonna be beautiful, that's a huge deal. So, kind of the two things.
Councilwoman Peterson, you and I have talked about this. I think we do have to do something special for them because this is very special. They're here all the time, but that's because they keep winning, and now they've won the state championship. I think, in addition to that, you might want to think about some type of sign to put there, home of the, 2019 state champs or something along those lines. Just something to consider, that you want these young athletes to be remembered. This is something important, just like we did the proclamation recently for the 1979 team, I think it was.
Yep.
You want these athletes to be remembered. I know when I grew up, when I went to Clifton High School, we had similar softball championships, and there were signs throughout town. And if you drive in Clifton now, you'll still see those, and those girls will be remembered forever. And I think in our little community, we're talking about a legacy here, and I think they should be remembered with everything you just described, but maybe the addition of some type of sign or plaque or something that you could put on that field, so that way our younger athletes, my daughter who's 3 months looks up to that and says, okay, I remember that, I see that, and there's something to strive for. I'm a big believer in that, so something that you should consider
Yeah.
as you go through
I think
this.
that's a great idea.
So.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we'll talk more about that as the time, but we can maybe talk about a date for after July 1, and reach out to the high school, and we'll work on coordinating that. But thank you so much. And that's all I have.
All right, Mayor, just on that point, maybe it makes sense, our next meeting is June 24th, the staff meeting, is that what it is?
17.
17th? Maybe we discuss it then and try to finalize plans, because a lot of those young women are gonna be going off to college, we don't
Yeah.
wanna lose them.
They are,
So
yeah.
we could
Yeah.
pick the date where we're gonna do it, and let's coordinate it, and then we can figure out what we're gonna do between
Great.
now and then, if everybody agrees.
Yeah, I
You
agree
know?
to that, because I remember even last year, we kind of ran into that
Right.
problem with,
Yeah.
then it's summer, and then girls are going away to college, and so the sooner we could probably do, like, the earliest in July.
The reorganization
that we
is
could do-
Monday, so maybe that week, if we can get
Yeah.
it done, if everybody's
Yeah.
on board, right?
So,
Okay.
yeah, the fireworks are there, right,
They are?
that week.
The 30th.
Oh,
the
the
fireworks.
30th, okay. Anyway, well, yeah, maybe, thought we could have fireworks for them. We're really pushing it now.
Couple extra fireworks?
All right, that's all I have, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Canal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple update requests and then two new items. Mr. Tucci, I got a list here, just updates if you don't mind, and some of them we're repeating. I know we talked about the state on the overpass. What about Route 23? Is there any update on that?
Still July
Still July.
is the tentative date to repave.
Have they started anything in that regard where we know it's happening, or is there
Well,
anything?
there's a small crew, nothing like it should be
Right.
out there, but they're still giving us the dates, the updates, latest is still July,
Sometime in July?
sometime in July.
Okay. And what about Bowden? How are we looking on it? I see.
Bowden Road.
We've been getting the
it-
alerts, which has been great.
It was scheduled for Wednesday, but Wednesday's supposed to rain, so I'm assuming the paving's gonna start on Thursday.
On this, it's done on the, on,
Yeah, that piece, I'm talking about the
On this piece.
remaining portion,
So by
Okay.
the end of the week, you're thinking it should be all completed then?
hopefully.
Hopefully,
As
depending
long
on
as the weather holds up.
Sure.
Like, they were supposed to come Wednesday, but again, the forecast is for rain, so that's gonna be pushed to Thursday, definitely.
can I just ask while we're on that point?
Sure.
real quick? Are we gonna get that crosswalk repainted down,
Yes.
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
have that redone.
thank you.
Hey, Councilman Canal, if I may.
Yes.
The level of communication that we've gotten on that paving has been remarkable. We're getting text messages, phone calls, and I can tell you, look, I own a business right over there, so we're able to communicate that to everybody. And so that has been extremely, extremely helpful.
Well, I just want to explain. There was a little gap where you weren't getting them. That's because Nixle went to a paid system. So we had to re-register and had to go through this whole training. They just didn't transition us from the old system, which was unpaid, to the new. So now our notifications are a lot broader, and we can narrow the scope to just the neighborhood rather than send it blindly to everybody. So there's a lot more functionality with Nixle now, and that's why you're seeing a lot more targeted stuff go out. Whereas we had like a 1 to 1.5 month period where we had nothing because we were going through transition. So we apologize for that, but unfortunately it was beyond our control. That was the system.
Right.
But it seems to be working out pretty well at this
Yeah, I
point.
agree.
Yeah, for sure.
While we're down there too, the tennis courts, what's the update with the tennis courts?
Tennis courts, probably by mid-July, the 2 tennis courts on Little Falls Road next to the recycling center will be done. And then probably toward the end of the year, the other 2 will be done. As I explained, Doing it this way, we're gonna save approximately $30,000. It was originally scheduled, I think you appropriated $65,000 in the bonding ordinance. I think the price came in doing it this way, $34,000. So because we're staggering it rather than do it, I don't understand the reasoning why, but for some reason, if we stagger it, we're only gonna spend half the money.
You said mid-July is for the
The first two,
and then what's the next date?
at the end of the year, probably November,
November.
as long as the weather holds up. If that doesn't happen, it's gonna roll to the spring.
One thing, thank you, Mr. Tucci. I guess Mr. Dunn and everybody else who uses that, they're aware
They're
of the
aware of it.
scheduling? It's good?
Matter of fact, that's why the timing of first two, that period, I think, is not gonna have anybody on it.
Okay.
And it's only gonna take 10 days to do.
We talked about on the, down there too, maybe some type of, like signage, like Cedar Grove Tennis or what have you, know, that, the net that kind of goes through, the see-through net. I know that both Blasi, and I know it's a baseball league, Blasi has it, George Street has them, Cedar Grove down there. Is that something that we can consider?
We
looking
can
into?
look into it. I don't know what the
Yeah.
tennis regulations, I'm not up on tennis. But as long as it's allowed, you know,
Right.
we could pursue it.
Okay.
I don't know if it distracts or whatever, you know, you never know what the regulations are.
I was just thinking something that's on, you know, it's it's adjacent to Bowden Road
No,
down, you know.
I get it.
Yeah, 'cause
Or Little
Rona
Falls
has
Road.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Rona
Almost like a
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that,
Rona has it.
exactly. Going to my list here. I don't want to steal Mr. Burns' thunder, but on my list, I had the plans for the field too. What is the update? Sorry, Mr. Burns, you can come up and talk about it more, but what is the update?
Matter of
on
fact, I
LFA?
just spoke to John Cornelia from Canadian today.
Yeah,
He authorized Mazer, who's doing the plans, to send me the final plans. Hopefully, I'm gonna have them by next week. And as soon as I get them, I'm gonna call Mr. Burns. First one.
Come on over, we'll have a coffee.
Can you bring your dog?
I don't drink it today. I was gonna do that.
the timing on that field, so we're gonna get that next week, but the timing is still
Still July,
July.
tentatively July, as long as
Right.
you approve it, you and the Board of
And
Education.
then I guess if we look at those plans, if there's any tweaking that we want, we have an
We
opportunity.
still
to
have an
tweak it?
opportunity to do that.
Okay, good. All right. On Brunswick Road, Mr. Tucci, I was talking to two different residents about speeding there. Is that something that we can look at with regard to, I guess, the first step of putting a speed monitor to monitor the speeding
We-
on the flat top area there?
We could put the speed monitor out, not a problem.
And then, two new items. One of the things that Councilman-elect Nasseri and I talked about during the recent campaign was reestablishing the Senior Citizens Club. And I like for the council to consider, obviously reestablishing it, but also, I know we talk about having council liaisons to different clubs and programs that we have. I think it's important that we have one, or if not two of us, a liaison to that group, because we're getting a lot of feedback, at least Councilman-elect Nasseri and I did when we were campaigning. There's different issues that different senior citizens were bringing to our attention that, you know, I was not aware of. One, I think one of the biggest issues is how are we going to communicate to the seniors? And I know, Mr. Tucci, you and I have talked about that. Nixle great for a lot of the younger generation, but a lot of the seniors that we talked to, they were dependent on the Cedar Grove Verona Times for their news. And obviously, I'm not sure how many of them still subscribe to that, but if there's some type of,
Unfortunately, not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but the Verona Cedar Grove Times, they have a different format now that they've been sold to a different company.
Right.
And there is not as much, as everybody knows, not as much Cedar Grove news in there. There is general area news. I mean, I see articles from other towns in there, and they're not as responsive to putting our information in. Even the general stuff that the clerk tries to put in, we have a hard time getting it in. The whole plan is to create a database. Once we are able to communicate with the seniors, either get their telephone number, a lot of them don't have computers, like you said.
Right.
They don't have smartphones. So we're gonna need new telephone numbers and then some direct contacts and create a database where we'll have some contact information, no matter what method it is.
Right.
And that's how we're gonna build. But until we build that, it's gonna take a time to build the database, but once we have that, then we'll be able to communicate a lot better.
okay. And I guess programming, which, and maybe, I don't know if we put it on for the agenda for one of our staff meetings, to talk about what we're gonna be doing, how we go about establishing the club. And one, you know, one of the things that we talked about is having the recreation recreation department run it, as opposed to the seniors themselves, to take that burden off of them.
Well, that was the biggest problem
Right.
with it. I mean, the seniors, they did a good job, they tried their best, but they don't have the wherewithal to put it all together. Somebody to coordinate it for them, where all they need to do is just come and participate and enjoy themselves, rather than worry about setting it up, you know, who's gonna talk to who. So, you know, maybe that piece of it, like I said, we'll discuss what our thoughts are
Right.
collectively with the council, and the council could come to some consensus there on what to do with that.
Right. Great. And the other thing I wanted to bring to the council, there's still some pockets in town of property, and we talk, especially during election, about different issues and how we can address these various open spaces that we have in town. I think we need to have a plan in place going forward, and I'd like for us to commission a study for a plan of the various pieces of open space that are in town, so the council has that information in front of us, and we can make a decision what pieces of property we want to, if at all, aggressively pursue. But I think it's difficult to make those decisions without having that information in front of us. So I want to be proactive about it and have us look into that if there's no objection from the council.
You want to discuss that at the next staff meeting, or how?
I think it's a great idea. If there's no objection from the council, we can put it on for the next staff meeting to talk about it.
Sounds
All
good.
right?
No objection.
All right. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing, my long report tonight. The West Essex Trail, we talked about it at Clean
The
Sweep.
RFP is already out for that. We're expecting a return within 30 days, and we'll know which companies are going to put a proposal in for design of that.
And Mr. Tucci, just so the public's aware, when we talk about refurbishing it, the whole idea is to make repairs, but keep it in its natural state. I know a number of residents have contacted me, saying, what are you gonna do with that? What are you talking about refurbishing? We're not looking to take away the natural state of the trail, just make it safer for those people who utilize it.
The plan for that property in its entirety is it stays in its natural state. The only thing we're planning on doing is going in and maybe removing some of the fallen dead trees, just to clear it out, and establishing some walking nature trails through it. We may want to put some stations in there, because once you're in there, you know, you could get lost, with maps, and the station would indicate you are here on the property. So if you're in the middle of the property, the station will tell you you're in the middle. If you're on the end and beginning, it's just some kind of navigational tool, so that people, when they're walking the trail, they know where they are on the trail. But again, nothing real elaborate, because you want to keep it as natural as possible. There are a lot of animals in among that area, and there is some drainage that needs to be taken care of. There's a lot of water running, as we saw, you know, over the past few weeks, in particular the West Essex Trail. And I want to thank the county for coming in and handling that one outfall structure that comes out to Bowden Road. They did come in and do some repair there. So, you know, once we get the consultant in, we have them go through the whole thing, we'll establish a plan. But again, you can't stress enough, it's gonna stay in its natural state. There'll be no tree clearing other than removing some dead debris in there
Thank you, Mr.
to make it navigable.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I had a bunch of items here, but a lot of them were already covered. I want to first extend my condolences to Fire Chief Stan Kroll and Joe Maroney. They will certainly be missed, and we appreciate everything that they did for our community. The next thing I want to do is I want to congratulate Councilman-elect Messeri. I didn't see you at the last meeting. I wasn't able to make it, so congratulations to you, and we look forward to working with you. The next items that I have, so we have, through the Downtown Advisory Committee, we recently had our Cedar de Mayo event. I want to thank everybody who volunteered. I want to thank the township, Mr. Tucci, the police officers, the Board of Education. It was a success. We probably had 400 to 500 people actually come through that event. And a large majority of them did exactly what we wanted them to do afterward, which was go shop in our downtown area and go eat in our downtown area. So that's exactly the purpose of those events. So a huge success. Moving on to our next event that we have, this is our second art walk that we'll be doing. So if you recall, we had the art walk, the art that was put on the telephone poles last year. That's on June 13th at 6:30. It will be tweaked a little bit this year. Every year we're going to continue to make improvements to these things. So June 13th, we'll have we actually have a band that's going to be playing in the center of the downtown area, right by Joe Littman's property, which is down by Major Hardware. We'll have independent musicians, acoustic musicians up and down Pompton Ave, playing either a saxophone or a guitar. And then we'll also have some vendors, some craft vendors up and down Pompton Ave. So the goal is, again, we want all of our businesses to be open. We want windows open. We want everybody out on the avenue to really celebrate what we're trying to do in the downtown area. So that'll be at 6:30. And then there's an after party at Delmonico's, again, another local business that we're supporting. So hopefully everybody can make it. We won't have a formal opening like we did last year with the ribbon cutting, but it will be a 6:30 kickoff with music and crafts and so on and so forth. Okay, softball we talked about already. Paving we got. Mr. Tucci, you mentioned earlier the crosswalk. Where do we stand on that by Panther Park?
Just waiting for the county to make their final tweaks on the plan and sign
Okay.
off on it.
We've
Matter
submitted.
of fact, I just saw an email last Thursday from Alex Palumbo to Sanjay Vargas, the county engineer. He asked for some additional information, and Alex sent it over to him. So we're just waiting for a response.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good news. I appreciate you pushing that. Thank you very much.
And as a follow-up to that, I think Councilman Tanella had brought up the issue, or maybe it was the mayor. Somebody had approached us about a little walking trail alongside from Ozone
Yes.
to Bradford. Maybe we could ask the county representative if there's any feedback on that, because that'll be another connecting piece.
Right, yeah.
With the sidewalk to get through.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
we asked at the last
Yeah, we
meeting,
asked,
so maybe
yeah.
Ms. Hardwick has an update for
Okay.
us. I'll ask her.
The next item that I want to, if we can get an update on, we were attempting to have a meeting with North Caldwell and the county. And so there were two topics. I wanted to talk about that one, and I see Ms. Casilli here was going to talk about that, but I have a feeling she's going to get up and ask some questions. So I'm not going to go into that area, but where do we stand on that meeting?
Well, we did have a meeting with North Caldwell. Unfortunately, it did not include elected officials. It was just a professional meeting. The town engineer and the town administrator from North Caldwell, the county, I think I reported on at the last meeting,
Yes.
the county engineer and his assistant, and myself and Alex Palumbo. They are reviewing the properties that we asked them to take a look at, where we suspect that the drainage is coming from. They're going back on old approvals, and they promised us they were going to take a look and get back to us and let us know if there's anything they could do to slow that rate of runoff coming off those properties.
Okay. Did they give us any ETA?
Now, it's a large task, because they're gonna have to go back and pull all the plans and all those approvals, then they're gonna have to go and speak to whoever the developers are, I don't know if they're individuals. So there's a whole process there. That's not gonna be real quick.
Okay. You know what, sometimes finding the right answer it's not a quick answer,
Mhm.
so, I'd rather do the due diligence and see if we can get to the right answer and resolve some of those problems over there.
But again, I can't stress enough, the problem is not in Cedar Grove.
Of course,
Okay,
yeah.
We're relying on officials in other towns to try to assist us.
I'll say this, I appreciate you doing what you're doing, because we recognize it is not in Cedar Grove, it's coming down from the mountain, but, this is exactly what we wanted to do, which was to advocate on behalf of our residents and to see if we can find a solution, and I think that meeting was the first step. So, as you know, I wasn't at the last meeting here, so I apologize for making you have to say
No
it
problem.
twice.
Not a problem.
And then, so the last question that I have is the South End Firehouse. I see that's moving along. When do we think that's going to be finished?
The estimated time is November. Delivery is substantial completion, I'm told, is November this year.
Okay. And
Because that's gonna coincide with the next payment from Caldanian on the $1 million. We already have 300,000 that we have from them. Once that's completed, according to the schedule, we'll get another 300,000. And at that point, we will proceed with the bonding of a new fire truck for that facility. Because then we'll almost be able to pay for the fire truck cash at
That'd be
that
great.
point. So the stress level on the taxpayer is gonna be almost nil with those dollars.
perfect.
Almost nil. You like that?
That's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I usually don't report back on things that happen at the planning board because there's usually nothing too exciting, but we did have an application last Tuesday or Tuesday before. Yeah, not this past Tuesday, the Tuesday before that. We had an application by Mr. Heller, who owns the property by Giuseppe's, the lot and Time Warp all the way down. And I thought I should report on it so everyone knows that Mr. Heller purchased the property on Bowden, which is the next property over from the Realty.
I think that's the old Mayon property, I believe. The house, yes.
If you're, when you're on Bowden, there's well,
The old
if you're,
dentist office?
the old dentist office next door to that,
Okay,
okay?
further away from town hall?
Correct.
Okay,
Purchased that property and he put in an application to raise the property and make a bigger parking lot. So
That's great.
he purchased the property for $400,000. He's gonna knock it down. And he's gonna spend another $300,000. And we had a very long meeting that night, and the big issue was whether we were gonna permit a driveway out to Bowden. And after much debate and back and forth between Mr. Heller's attorneys and the planning board, who was against it, Mr. Heller got up about 11 o'clock that night and said, I just want the parking. I don't need the driveway. So he was a gentleman, and he's owned that. It's been in his family since the 40s. That property, and he said, I just want to give the people more place to park and more reason to be in the downtown area. So it was a great night, and we approved the variances to consolidate that lot into his lot and to give him the permission to build. It was supposed to be 14 spots, but now because we said no to the driveway, they need a little extra room for a car to turn around, so it'll be 13 spots. So they're going to
fantastic.
start working on that soon, and they're going to repave the entire Giuseppe's parking lot.
Go off a little bit.
And they're gonna make it ADA compliant and everything else that goes along with it, lighting and, so it was
That's
a real,
fantastic.
yeah, real win for downtown.
yeah, it really is fantastic, because that parking lot serves so many businesses
Yeah.
over there. And it really is, it's right in the heart of the downtown.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic, great to hear that.
So, and beyond that, that's all that I have, so I'm going to move on the agenda to item 7, consent agenda, 7A. May I have a motion to consider the resolution concerning approval of the raffle application for the Cedar Grove Elks?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Is there any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Couverous?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Moving on to new business, item 8A, to consider introduction of pending ordinance number 19-844, 2019 salaries for the unrepresented employees.
An ordinance fixing salary grades and ranges, wages and fees of the officers and employees of the Township of Cedar Grove for fiscal year 2019.
May I have a motion, please?
Mayor, I move introduction of pending ordinance number 19-844 to be published in summary in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for June 17th, 2019.
Second, Mayor.
Is there any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Couverous?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes,
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8B, to consider resolution concerning establishment of stormwater utility.
Be it resolved that the Township Council will not create a stormwater utility that would impose new taxes on its residents, nor charge them an extra tax for having driveways, parking lots, and other impervious surface.
Mayor, just an explanation what that is. That is a resolution in support against a rain tax. I think Assemblyman DePhillips and Assemblyman Rudy and Senator Corrado pushed this, and I think, Mayor, there was a letter addressed to you
Yep.
asking this governing body to support it. So I just want to explain to the public what that is, that we do not want municipalities to have the ability to create stormwater utilities. It's only to create more taxes, and as I indicated at the last meeting, it's only double taxation. That's what taxpayers are paying for the taxes for right now. This would be a tax to make them pay a second time for the same thing they're already paying. So just to clarify what it is, because I think it was a little bit ambiguous just by reading it.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I
Tucci.
ask a question? I'm sorry. Mr. Tucci, just for the benefit of the public, again, is it, the municipality has the ability to opt out of that? And that's what this, basically, this resolution, isn't that what it does? We're saying that we are not in favor
We're not in favor of
of
it.
what the governor has attempted to
Right.
pass?
What the legislation does is it gives municipalities the ability to create stormwater utilities. And on that, they could tax people based on what their impervious surface is. They're adding more stormwater into the drainage system, so on and so forth. But again, that's what planning boards and zoning boards and municipal reviews are for. You're supposed to incorporate that into your review process, not have it done and then charge people for it afterwards. So this is to not give them, the towns, the ability to even create the utility.
And beyond that, Councilman-elect, from discussing this item with Assemblyman DePhillips, Chief of Staff, this is basically the Township of Cedar Grove sending a message to the governor saying that you can permit municipalities to do this, but we are not going to do it to our residents because we believe it only results in double taxation. So go ahead and pass your law, but this township, as well as all the others that are supporting the movement by Assemblyman DePhillips, is saying no to double taxation. Any further discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was a
Motion.
Sorry. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8C, to consider resolution concerning estimated tax bills.
Be it resolved that the tax collector is hereby authorized and directed to prepare and issue estimated tax bills for the Township of Cedar Grove for third installment of 2019 taxes.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Mr. Tucci, do you want to go
Yes.
over that as we do every
We
year?
do this every year, and the reason why we do it is, if we don't do the estimated tax bills, we'd have to wait for the county to certify the tax rate. And sometimes that doesn't happen until after August, in some cases. If that happens, the town will not have enough funds to pay their bills, whether it be the Board of Education or whatever, and we would have to go out and take a loan in order to pay our bills until the rate gets certified. By getting an estimated tax bill, we have a cash flow, and then what we do is the next quarter tax bill, we just adjust. That's why this quarter will be larger, and then it gets adjusted, you get a smaller one. That's why you just can't get your tax bill and say, these 4 payments are gonna be my total taxes are. Because normally, this third quarter is normally a little bit different. So that's the reason, it's for cash flow purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. We had a motion, a second. Any further discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8D, to consider resolution concerning insertion of item of special revenue, clean communities.
Be it resolved that the Township Council hereby requests the Director of the Division of Local Government Services to approve the insert of an item of revenue in the budget of the year 2019 in the sum of $24,271.55, which is now available as a revenue from the Clean Communities Program.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, a couple things. This is approximately $1,000 more than we received last year, so we're very happy for the increase. And just to give everybody a little bit of historical background, Clean Communities program is probably about 29 years in the making. Probably about 5, 6 years ago, this program was discontinued, and you heard a large cry from a lot of municipalities throughout the state. At the time, our then Senator Kevin O'Toole and Senator Loretta Weinberg from Bergen County got together and fought and had this all reinstituted, and that's why this program is still alive and well. But this is one of the best grant programs that they have in the state of New Jersey. I mean, it aids a lot of communities in litter abatement, and really, it's a good publicity thing to keep litter abatement in people's forefront of their mind. Litter abatement should be every day, not just Clean Communities Day, but this just highlights what we should be doing every day. So I just wanted to give you a little historical background on how this program is still alive. If it wasn't for those two senators who led the charge at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tanella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8E, to consider resolution concerning insertion of item of special revenue, click it or ticket.
Be it resolved that the Township Council requests the Director of the Division of Local Government Services to approve the insert of an item of revenue in the budget of the year 2019 in the sum of $5,500, which is now available as a revenue from the Click It or Ticket 2019 seatbelt mobilization.
Make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
Yes, this is for extra patrols during the months as designated, and what you'll see is you'll see extra patrols out there. And in today's day and age, I don't know of anybody who doesn't use their seatbelt. And if they don't, they should be a lot more aware. It's almost like the cell phone law. You shouldn't be on the cell phone, and you should buckle up as soon as you get in your car. If not, if you get a ticket, that's going to be a little unfortunate for you, but it's for your own protection at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tanella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8F, to consider resolution concerning insertion of special revenue, non-public nursing services.
Be it resolved that the Township Council requests that the Director of the Division of Local Government Services to approve the insert of an item of revenue in the budget of the year 2019 in the sum of $19,497, which is now available as a revenue from Cedar Grove Board of Education.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tanella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8G, to consider resolution endorsing amended Round 3 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan.
Be it resolved that the council hereby endorses the amended Fair Share Plan as adopted by the Cedar Grove Township Planning Board on May 21st, 2019, and hereby authorizes and directs its professionals to immediately file the adopted and endorsed amended Fair Share Plan and all other relevant documents with the court.
Is there a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, this Fair Share Plan is part of the requirements of our settlement with the court on the co-issue, but it's also a component of the master plan, which this was the only piece that was holding off the adoption of our master plan, which was before the planning board. I believe our planner is going to finalize that, but this piece needs to be segregated out so that Mr. Jaziniak, our special counsel on COA, can bring it to the court and the judge can sign off and finalize the adoption of our compliance and the settlement.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Any further discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tanella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 9, approval of bills.
Be it resolved that the summary of bills having been duly audited and found correct are hereby ordered paid in the amount of $161,983.92.
It's a very small one.
May I have a motion?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Couburris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 10, the meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item on or off the agenda concerning township business. Good evening, Ms. Hardwick.
Good evening. A couple of quick announcements. First is that we are having our movies during the month of June at Kips Castle down the road in Verona. The first movie is this Friday, June 7th, and then there will be another movie the following Friday, and all of the details are available on the county's website or by calling the Parks Department at 973-268-3500. And then the other item is that our summer concert series is coming up. Those postcards will be mailed out this week. There is a concert in Cedar Grove at Cedar Grove Park. That one will be held later in August. The concert series begins, I believe, June 22nd, and you can find the whole schedule for all of the concerts and all of the park system on the website. I do need to follow up. I did mention to some staff about that piece of property off of Ozone. I'll follow up with that this week and
Great.
get back to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hardwick. Any other residents wishing to be heard on any item either on or off the agenda? Ms. Casilli, good evening.
Good evening. Lisa Casilli, 12 Dogwood Court. First, I want to thank the council and Mr. Tucci for continuing to look into the water issue down on Lindsley, coming off of North Caldwell. I know those of us that live in that area, Willow Ridge Drive and Dogwood Court, really appreciate that you are willing to hear our concerns about the ongoing water issues. And I also wanted to thank you for offering to do an engineer's report on the drainage system at Dogwood Court. I'm wondering if I could get some feedback as to who would be doing that and when that would be occurring?
Do you?
Yes, the company that's doing is Omland Engineering.
What is
doing
it?
the report, Omland, O-M-L-A-N-D.
Okay,
And right now, they are still in the process of doing their exploratory work. As a matter of fact, after the last meeting, you had sent me a number of reports that your consultant, and I sent them off to him also, so
Thank
that he
you.
can review what your people had come up with in drawing his conclusion. So,
Thank you, Mr. Tucci.
But I'm saying that's going to be at least another 30 days before you see a report from him.
Okay.
Because it may take a little longer, but I'm optimistic 30 days.
okay, great, thank
All right.
you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Casilli. Any other members of the public wishing to be heard? Mr. Burns, do you have any further questions on the field, or?
I have a lot, but I wasn't keeping notes, so I'll just be mumbling, so I'm going to defer.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting.
Questions tonight?
Next meeting, I'll be here.
We'll look forward to it. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting of the mayor and council in certain circumstances, and whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Cedar Grove are of the opinion that such circumstances exist, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Township of Cedar Grove, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, that the public shall be excluded from discussion of any action on the executive session of the meeting of the mayor and council of June 3rd, 2019. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is land acquisition, contract negotiation, with the city of Newark. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public as soon thereafter as it is deemed in the public interest to do so. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Any comment? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Couburris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.